Ever enter a trade and have it almost instantly start going against you? Well, in this video, we're going to put an end to all that. Be sure to watch until the end to ensure that you don't continue to fall into these old ways. And if you stick around until the end, I'll even show you my super secret liquidity strategy that I use almost every day. So, what is liquidity? Liquidity is kind of like another word for money. Liquidity is found in the market in the form of entries and exits. You can think of it as fuel because the more liquidity sitting in the market, the larger the market is going to move once it captures the liquidity. Why is liquidity so important? For starters, being able to identify liquidity is essential to getting the perfect entry on reversal trades. It's important to understand liquidity because it is targeted by big banks and institutions as areas to place large buys and large sells. And once again, the more liquidity that they can capture, the larger the move that is going to occur. Now let's take a look at this candlestick. I see this candle and I think liquidity. Anytime I see a long wick on a candle, I think liquidity. Each and every candle has its story to tell. This one tells a kind of bullish story. The market tried to push the price down, but the buyers weren't letting that happen and bought the price back up. This one, on the other hand, tells a more bearish story. The market tried to push the price up, but the sellers weren't having it and they sold the price back down. So what happens when liquidity is captured? So the reason that we want to know where liquidity is because that is likely where the institutions are going to place their buy and sell orders. So for instance, before a big institution places a big buy order, they need to make sure they have enough people to sell it to. And how is it they make sure they have enough people to sell it to? What happens is, and what the story of the candle tells is, the institutions are pushing the price down just far enough to trigger all the stop losses. And once all the stops are cleared, and after these large institutions are successful in driving the price down, they put in their order for their buy, driving the price up dramatically. And of course, if they want to sell, it's the same thing, but the opposite. So now that you have a basic understanding of what liquidity is and why it's so important, let's hop in the charts and take a look at how to find liquidity, how to trade it, and stick around to the end. I'll even show you my secret strategy for trading liquidity sweeps. All right, so here we are in the charts and there is so much liquidity to be found. As I said earlier, whenever you see long wicks, like here we got a wick to the downside, upside, so wicks down here, even one up here, you should be thinking liquidity. So what's the significance of all this liquidity? Like I said, the more liquidity to be found, think of liquidity like fuel. So there is a lot of liquidity just lying in here around this 151 level. And then there's even a little up here to the 456. One thing to know about liquidity is it's always going to get taken out. So for instance, we have some liquidity right here, some liquidity right here, and liquidity isn't considered to be taken out until the price comes past it. And if it's to the downside, makes a new low, or to the upside, makes a new high. So right here, we're building liquidity, building liquidity, building liquidity, building some liquidity to upside, pull down here and sweep the liquidity, and then we reverse to the upside to form a new higher high. So until liquidity was swept, the range was from about 451.50 to about 456.50. All right, we came down here, made new lows, sweeping liquidity, going down to 451.50 exactly, and then running all the way up to 457.76. Next example. Right now we're on the 1 hour chart. I'm going to highlight this so we know where it is. This is where we are. We can see a lot of liquidity right here. It's important to realize that liquidity looks different on different time frames. So this is the 1 hour chart. This is what that same area looks like on the 4 hour chart. So we can still see there's more liquidity here, more liquidity to the upside. So right here on the larger time frame, we are forming more liquidity. And since it's occurring on a larger time frame, that is serving as a lot more fuel. So we have liquidity to the up and downside. This liquidity to the downside actually comes and gets swept right here. So this sweeps the liquidity on the downside, then it comes back down, forms some more liquidity in this area. And let me take a moment to show you actual liquidity being swept. All right, so if we look here, you can see there is liquidity right here. And then it comes and just barely passes it. And Once it comes and barely passes it like that, sometimes it'll go a lot further, like down here. Sometimes it'll just go right there. But it just passing like that, consider the liquidity captured, and this is where it begins to make its reversal. So we come down, sweep, and then let's look at the next candles. It built up a lot of energy, just ranging in this area, forming a lot of liquidity. And it's gone on a massive run, and it still continues to run. And liquidity doesn't have to just look like this, where it's kind of support and resistance, blast off or sell off. Liquidity can also be formed in trend lines. So for instance, looking right here, liquidity is being formed throughout this whole trend line. Every touch, there's a little wick down at the bottom, and there's liquidity forming. And you notice right here, the trend line is broken. And notice that's also when we get our blast off. This trend line liquidity is swept, blast off. Pro tip, when you see liquidity get swept, expect a reversal and expect it fast. Relevant to whatever time frame you're on. And now that you know how to find liquidity on the charts, know what it looks like, and know that it doesn't just trade sideways, that you can also find it on trend lines, it is time to show you my super secret strategy. All right, so here we are on the 15-minute chart. Typically when I'm doing this strategy is a day trade, so I will be on the 15-minute chart. And what I will start out by doing is looking for liquidity. So we have some right here. There's a little right here, but what I'm really looking for is right here. This is where it's currently trading at. So I'm hoping to see it come and sweep this liquidity. But you know me, one factor is not enough. So a liquidity sweep on its own is not going to do it for me. I also need to make sure there is something else significant about that level. And in this instance, this area is also a demand zone, this candle right here. So I'm going to draw this right here. And now what I'm going to do is I am hoping that it comes back in here. And once it comes in here, I will move on and drop down to the 1 minute for my entry. But yeah, we got a demand zone right here. Let me draw out the level for a sweep of liquidity right there at the bottom of the demand zone. All right, so right here, we just got our tap into this zone. So I'm going to drop down to the 1 minute. And I'm still watching for that liquidity to get swept. But now there is also the strength of a demand zone. So let's see how this plays out. A lot of sideways trading. Okay, looks like we're starting to move towards it. All right, so what happened here is we got the break on the new day. At this point, if I'm still watching at the end of the day, I'll either consider grabbing some upside into market close, or I will continue to wait and watch this in the morning. Now, let's say I decide to get in the morning. In the morning, I see there's this break of liquidity. And right here, once it passes this high, I am entering this position and I am riding this up to, I'm going to be targeting, get in right here, stop loss down here with the profit target up here. Actually tighten the stop loss up a little bit since it ran so much on the morning. Move it more right here. And now let's let it go. All right, broke through our profit target and that thing is still running. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, be sure to smash the like button. If for some reason you're new here and haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon so that you don't miss any future content. And last, but certainly not least, thank you so much for watching. Matthew Manuel signing off, and I want to change your life.